Yeah, good times.
Some people, you're just like their confession wall, you know? It's like, I'm not Catholic, but I like the idea. So you're like a mobile priest to come in my home I can confess to.
To the podcast formerly known as Rewatchers on the Pod, which is now going to be known as henceforth and for the next however long this takes, We Watches the Watchmen. You're here with me, Tyler Harris, and
Gwen Hammer,
Tyler McKinley,
Justin Hammer.
Wow, we did that on the fly. Like immediately, I was like, we didn't discuss this. Yeah, that was beautiful. Oh, right back in the saddle. It feels so good. Everyone, just in one word, how have you been since last I saw you? Justin?
Destiny.
Destined. Yes.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, we'll.
I've been waiting for the podcast so that I can actually talk about my experience.
Can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm glad that you saved it for this. We've got a podcast exclusive. That's very good. Tyler, what's your word?
Old.
Okay. Yeah.
You stole Gwen's word.
Yeah, that was going to be mine, but I'll go with, huh.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mine is just tired. Just tired.
Yeah.
It feels like a lifetime since we've done this.
I know.
And
What
it's
was
been
the
a
last thing we
month,
did? Oh,
right?
Yeah. The last thing we watched was Buster Keaton.
Holy
Right?
shit.
That was our last thing? Wow.
Everyone's favorite episode.
The one, yeah, it's
the one that put us on the map.
Yeah, it skyrocketed us to fame, and then we just went radio silent, and people are just foaming at the mouth for more
My
content.
phone's been blowing up. I used to get calls about my car's extended warranty. Now I'm getting calls about when your podcast coming back on, et cetera, such a death threat.
Yeah, I've been getting so many calls from fans, and they are all just asking if I want to increase my credit limit. It is crazy.
So many
And
fans.
do you know what? I'll tell you what I've told everyone. I don't know if I'm ready.
I could see like
I'm going to start answering
that call and be like, "Oh, you must be here about the podcast."
Oh,
Yes,
God.
all right.
Oh, how did you get this number? It's not even posted
Are
publicly.
you a sponsor?
Yeah, I have stopped answering my phone because the only people who call me are people who I don't want to talk to. But I might actually start answering my phone to start marketing this podcast now. Like, you never know. One of these people who work in a call center might need some content.
It's true. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, okay?
I'll give you the first 4 numbers of my credit card.
You send me screenshots of a fully listened to episode, we'll talk more numbers. That's what we need to be doing. We need to get way more aggressive.
Here's what we do. We start a YouTube channel about us marketing the podcast to the scammers that call us on a daily basis. That'll get those numbers way up there. We'll just piggyback off that one guy who scams the scammers.
Yeah.
You know.
They're like, where did they come up with the idea for this hit YouTube series? They've got they recorded hundreds of hours of podcasts that no one's ever going to listen to. That is commitment to their art.
That's just fine-tuning things.
Yeah.
Practice run.
So good.
20,000 hours. We're just getting started, you know?
Yeah.
20,000 hours of practice before you master something?
Exactly, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
We're finally ready to tell our friends about it. Yeah, we've been messing around. It's not great, but... Okay. Anyways. But all of this time, everything that we have done has prepared us for our current watch through. We're getting back to our roots. Moving away from movies, what? You're going to tell a story in an hour and a half, 2 hours?
Apparently not popular things on podcasts.
Not even worth it. Yeah. We've learned our lesson loud and clear. We're going back to TV. where stories are told over hours and hours in bite-sized chunks, where true artists live. And we decided that we're going to be watching, you probably already guessed it, Watchmen, of which we have watched the first episode. And Tyler has graciously offered to summarize for your pleasure and complete and clear understanding.
Yeah. All right. So the history of the United States is very sad, and it makes you reflect on the history of mankind and that we're just a sad race. We move on.
We move on! Oh, God.
We move on to the future. The alternate future, that is, of the sequel to the comic book.
Yes.
Of Watchmen, which was an alternate version of the 1980s. Well, I guess, and some of the 60s and
70s. Yeah, kind of starting. Yeah.
And so now here we are, present alternate day. And a man is pulled over by a cop wearing a yellow bandana over his face. We see lots of different restrictions placed on the law enforcement that some of them you're like, hey, that might be a good idea, but then you realize maybe not. And then we learn that there's a thing called the Well, I don't know what they're actually called, but they have the masks, Rorschach masks of this sort of cult, and that's a bad thing. It's against the law. And some of the police also they all wear masks, but some of them wear better masks than others.
True.
And one of them being a panda head, which was my favorite.
Just dirty, too. Like, that was my impression. Just dirty.
And the whole
head.
bottom's, like, customly cut out, like you did it with, like, a hacksaw. Anyway, this is the worst summary ever. And I'm going to speed this up a bit. So, one of the cops gets killed by one of the Rorschach dudes, and the cops are like, well, fuck it. Our lives are in danger. Rule book out the window. There's no way this could ever go badly in court of law for us, how we're interpreting this wording. And they are like, we can use guns now. And so they attack a farm. A lot of cows die. They're collecting batteries out of watches and earpieces, which is not good news for anyone. And then the dude from Holes is wearing a mirror, like a really chrome reflective mask, and he's good at interrogating people. And so you know exactly what happened there. And then there's an airplane that flies away, and somehow they have Night Owl's thing in the law enforcement, his airship, and they flamethrower the airplane. It blows up. And so there's a woman. She's dressed as a nun, but she's a cop, and she beats the shit out of Rorschach dude. She's also a baker. She has a family of white kids. And then they have dinner with the sheriff, the chief of police.
Yeah.
And then the chief of police sings a song, and then when you realize nothing happens in that scene, you're like, oh, he's dead. And what do you know? He is dead. And a guy in a wheelchair calls up the nun lady and is like, hey, you better come to this hill and don't wear your mask because I know who you are. And I can't remember her name, so I don't know who she is. I don't know I can't remember anyone's name in this. And yeah, then she goes to the hill by the tree, and then the chief of police body's hanging from a tree, and the wheelchair man sitting under it. And then a drop of blood drops on the sheriff badge, which is a nice little nod to the Watchmen cover. And that is where the first episode ends. So
yeah,
flawless. You now know where we know.
That's all. So Tyler and I are pretty familiar with Watchmen, the source material that this is a sequel to, and also the source material that it's not a sequel to, that is still sort of a source visually, sort of. Sure. Justin and Gwen, you have no experience with Watchmen. How are you guys feeling? I know that you've watched the episode and you just had like Tyler recap it, so you're probably like super comfortable with all the information, the whole world. But just what are your impressions, kind of, as you're diving headfirst into Watchmen?
So I have no idea what's going on, which is kind of fun, actually.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
I don't know anything about the background. Like, there's so much world building that is very present. Like, it feels like the things are pretty, like, fleshed out. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that I will hopefully become aware of. Like, the whole scene with Dr. Manhattan, I think is his name, on Mars, like, destroying a castle or something.
The King of Mars.
Wait, there was a Dr. Manhattan on Mars?
It was just like a news clip.
yeah.
It was like Dr. Manhattan on Mars or something, and like that's cool. What's going on there? Like there's cool like superhero stuff happening too, but like the main story that we've been presented so far. Gwen and I talked about this earlier, but we're like the protagonists of the story, at least the assumed protagonists right now, are people that I don't really like in real life have. Like I have issues with these kinds of people. Like things like Tyler mentioned, like the cops have all of these restrictions placed on them and things that like I personally like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. I think that would be really cool if we did some of that stuff. But then like they like just throw that out the window and it's like, oh, okay, like I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into this right now, but
Sure.
I feel like I'm having to cheer for people that are kind of like against some of my morals right now. Like it doesn't feel like they're good people right now.
Okay.
Which is kind of fun that they're the ones that are the protagonists right now too. But
I would
on the
say
other,
you're getting Watchmen for sure.
on the other side, like they're fighting white supremacists as well. At least I'm assuming that they are actually white supremacists. Maybe there's more to their story, whatever, and it's not. They're not. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out.
How are we going to talk about this?
I know that's actually a good question. Because there is, I want to preserve a lot of what you guys are experiencing as far as just getting to experience this world and not like try to like go too much into it.
Because I assume a lot of this stuff they're going to like reveal more about later in the show.
Yeah,
Okay.
and some of it does come like quite a bit later. So there, so it's interesting. But there are some big things. Yeah, it's doled out very slowly, and I mean, but there are also things that like. I'm sure for you, like I think about, I don't know if this was in the summer, I'm trying to remember, but the very last scene of this is just a man at like his mansion estate with his butler and maid doing something.
Oh yeah, I forgot about to mention. They don't say who he is.
Yeah, they don't mention who he is,
my
which
gosh.
is if you're familiar with it, you know immediately. But anyways, yeah, that's a good. We'll kind of just feel it out and see. So, because I'm sure there'll be, I don't know. We'll see. I also am kind of like,
because there's a lot of interesting things to talk about in this episode that are fascinating that we can't really. So
should we leave the room?
No. I think this will be the fun part about this
disinvited
podcast, is trying to like dance around this.
Because I think one of the things that one of the reasons that I felt like this would be a fun one to watch too is we talk a lot. I feel like it's come up a lot in what we've talked about is just adaptations, particularly from especially like a text medium or something like that to film. There's a lot of bad ones and a lot of mistakes that people make, and I feel like at least for me, this series feels like a really good version of that as far as what they choose and the choices that they make going between that. So I don't know, some of that will creep into, but anyways, Gwen, I just want to get your thoughts kind of on like what you're experiencing so far. Because just before we dive into some other discussion.
Well, Justin pretty much said all my thoughts as far as like my overall feelings, but the first scene I was immediately in tears.
Yeah.
So that was hard. But it feels like just the way that the episode was set up and all the imagery, it feels like this show is going to be very thematically tight and clean, which feels weird for what's been shown so far. Like everything morally is so messy that, and I mean, I could be totally wrong. Maybe it's not going to be tight, but that just feels like a weird tension. And then the other thing I noticed that Justin didn't talk about was a focus on looking at circles from above and below. We saw it at least 3 different times that I noticed. So the bowls from above, the bowls from below, the bucket full of batteries from above, and then the light fixture from above. And those were all really striking to me. And I have no idea I'm sure it was intentional. I don't know if it means anything, but it really stuck out to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that for me, I remember when I first watched this, like there is so much intentionality in a lot of this, and some of that is even just like the moments they're hearkening back. You know, you mentioned the shot with the blood on the badge, which is like probably the most iconic image from the Watchmen comic books. It's on the covers of all of them.
It's interesting because I don't know that image, but I noticed the smiley face with the eggs.
Sure. Oh yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I think the circle thing is actually something that's prevalent in both the comic book and the movie too. Which is they never like it, at least from my understanding. There's not like a definitive answer on the importance of that, even though I have opinions on what that is. But
sure.
Yeah, that's interesting that there's things in this. I think you mentioned earlier that there's like a lot of some visual not interpretation. What's the word I want? Like influence from oddly the movie.
Yeah.
To this, which is interesting because it is based on the comic book. So.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Yeah, that's the other thing that's interesting about this is that this show, like when it was being marketed, was very clearly they were like, this is a sequel to the comic book, not the movie, because there are differences in the endings of those, and it will become very important that it is a sequel to the comic book as we get further in. And you'll kind of learn more about those events as we go. They do a very good job of revealing that in very clear way.
There is something in this episode. There's only one thing in this episode that I feel like clearly indicates the difference.
Yeah,
that I can't say, but it's like that is like, and that's like one of the most weird parts of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
Should we go and read the? Are they comics or are they graphic novels?
So it was released in 12 issues, but it's just it's considered a graphic novel at this point.
Okay.
I'm assuming that they're not including any of the other stuff that was made much more recently, even though that's technically
none of the
canon stuff.
Yeah, none of the Before Watchmen or the I can't remember what the other ones are called, but Doomsday Clock I know is currently running. But it's very much just based on the original graphic novel. There are some things they choose to kind of go into some of the backstory of stuff that's presented in the comic in a way that I think would invalidate some of the Before Watchmen stuff and make some really interesting and cool choices.
Have
with
you
that.
read all the Before Watchmen?
You
mentioned that you got like halfway through one and gave up. Did you ever finish it?
I read the Rorschach one. I tried reading the Silk Spectre one, which I don't know why, because I hate Silk Spectre. But I do. Yeah. I've got complicated feelings about Silk Spectre. I like her more in. There's some stuff in this that touches on Silk Spectre that I like. But yeah, I haven't read all of them. I read part of Dr. Manhattan, but I didn't finish that one. Anyways, this is a whole lot of like couching this podcast in like figuring out what the hell we're going to be talking about. But I do want to start. Let's just start at the beginning and kind of talk about this. I don't know who knew about this event in history before watching this. I did not know. I mean, I didn't watch the show as it was airing, but I do remember that's when I learned about this, was when this episode aired, and all of a sudden people were talking about the Tulsa race riots, which I'd never heard about, didn't know anything about. And especially after watching this episode, you're like, man, this is kind of a crazy way to present this thing from history. And then you go and read about it and you're like, holy shit, this was how this thing from history happened. And which kind of just a little extra background for that. Tulsa, Oklahoma, at the time that these race riots occurred, was known as Black Wall Street. It was a town filled with successful and rich black people that were then attacked and murdered and killed by white supremacists and other people from the surrounding area, just in like an all-out war. There's a shot in this of just a plane like buzzing over this street as all these things are going on, and it just is crazy. But I think that kind of in talking about Watchmen, this feels like the first really big like adaptation choice that they made, which is using real historical events from our timeline and kind of couching them in these alternate timelines and seeing them play out, which is, I think, one of the coolest things about Watchmen, and like especially its kind of alternate history that it does. But yeah, I don't know. Like, did you guys? I just want to kind of know your guys' journey when you started. Like, as you watched that, did you know that that was a real thing, or was it something that you looked up afterwards?
I knew that it was real, but I first learned about it when Watchmen first aired.
Yeah.
I had never heard about it, and I read like a few lines about it at that time. But now I'm glad that I watched this awful depiction of the things that happened, so that when I go and look it up, I can go in with, you know, imagery and emotion rather than just dry, you know, this happened, this many people were killed, which is terrible, but it's harder to feel.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'm weirdly grateful that I didn't know much about it.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It still kind of blows my mind because it's like such a huge thing. But yeah, it was like removed from state of Oklahoma's textbooks. Like, it's not there. Like, it's
I think that's what bothers me the most, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because like it's no secret of. I mean, I don't want to get like too like philosophical or anything, but like I don't think it's any surprise that we as a human race have done some terrible things to each other, and specifically over the issues of race and tribalism, right? So it's like this thing is horrible enough on its own to learn about that way. But the fact that it was just swept under the rug and buried, and that so much of our history is who's ever in power can decide what history was, you know? And that's scary for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. So many of those things bother me, but like that is like the icing on the shit cake, right? Of like,
Yeah.
Fuck, we're fucked. Like,
This is a really great example of nationalism and yucky patriotism and the propaganda that we learned in history class. Like, we learned history, but we also learned it through the lens of propaganda.
It's like I look at sometimes I think about my history textbook in the same way I think about Watchmen now, where I'm like, well, yeah, that's a cool story.
but you mentioned this. That's what Watchmen did well. The original was take some horrible events and threw in some very flawed and interesting characters for us to really ask some questions about ourselves, about our race. And you can take it like there's layers, you know. But yeah, no, as dumb as that sounds, yeah, it's like there are a lot of layers to Watchmen that all stem from this idea of taking this horrible, hard to swallow subject matter and forcing you to kind of live in it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I I want to address this too. I feel like the thing that, I mean, the ideas of like this nationalism and stuff, those are all the same things that a lot of the choices they made in the original graphic novel are talking about. And it's really cool to me that this feels like a work, and spoiler alert, I really love this show. I feel like this is does such a great job of reinforcing the themes and ideas from the original Watchmen from a totally different angle, that just like I think broadens and deepens my understanding and thoughts on those things in a way that I think popular media like this has the power to do and frequently does not. And so anyways, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think this show has one of the most stunning openings, like starting with that black and white film of the, I can't remember what it's called, but just that kid in that movie theater, and then leading into all the horrors outside. Also feel like this really great like meta presentation of what the show is going to be doing, and it's so masterfully done, while also teaching me about a fucking horrifying piece of history. I just think it's really great. Do you guys have any other thoughts? I don't want to like dwell on this too long or like try to solve any problems here. That's not like I don't have the tools to do that. But like I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that opening before we move on. But
I think for me, just something I picked up on, like that, obviously, like the black and white, and excluding like black and white racial issues, but just thematically, good versus bad, black and white. Like starting, like you said, with the black and white movie or film at the very beginning, and then we move into a black and white racial issue, and then the Rorschach mask being black and white, and like just this thematic evolution of morality, I guess, throughout the film. And we end with the police chief who is fighting against white supremacy being hung up by, well, there's a black man in a wheelchair at the end who takes responsibility for this man's death. And presumably that's the child that we're seeing at the beginning of the movie, because he has the note that says, like, protect this boy or something. I can't remember for sure what it said, but just like it starts out with like this simple, easy to digest idea that we're all familiar with growing up just in society, black and white, whatever that means to you. And then it just like kind of grows into all of these other complexities, and you kind of get a taste. At least I am feeling like I'm getting a taste of what this show is going to be doing, and it's going to be playing on the ideas of what is right and what is wrong, all of the messy gray area that lives in between all of that, and couching it or setting it in something that is very present today with the racial issues that the country is facing. Just it looks like I've only seen one episode, and I'm like, this looks really cool. Like the ideas and the breadth of what we're going to be going through here seems like it's going to be pretty intense.
Yeah. So I'm ready to be made uncomfortable and not know what the right answer is, which I really like in books and shows. Yeah. So I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Great. Well, cool. Well, let's move on to the rest of this episode. Let's move away from these racial issues. Oh, wait.
We're done with the intro.
Yeah. So then after that, we do move to the present day. I just want to, like, do you guys have any characters or specific things in the episode that you're, like, really excited about or have a lot of questions about? Which I'm sure there are things. But I don't know if you guys...
The squid thing. Can we talk about the squid thing?
Can we? Like, sure, let's talk about the squid thing.
Okay, so it rains squid, and everyone's like, it's raining squid. We know the drill. We pull over, and then we wipe off our windshields, and we go home. Yeah. You know, it's an event. It happens. And then later, when they're interrogating the guy that the police officer pulls in, one of the questions is, do you believe interdimensional attacks are government funded or government conspiracies? And he says maybe. And I was just like, like, feels a little present. Like,
yeah. Here's what we can say about that. In 1985, an interdimensional being, giant squid, showed up in New York and killed 2 million people. Is that enough?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave this up to you on how much to.
I think that that's information that people in the world, and like the general public of the world in Watchmen know. I think it's okay to know. There will be more. You'll learn more about it.
Well, I feel like it would just be like someone watching our lives, and we're driving down the street, and then we get out of the car and we put on masks.
Yeah,
you know,
sure. Yeah.
And then walk into the store, go about our lives, get in the car, take off the masks.
Yeah.
And, you know, someone watching from their timeline would be like, ha.
That's fucking weird. Oh, gotta pull over for these squid. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so that is part of the history. Yeah. There's also I will just mention, I can't remember if it's mentioned in this episode, but a lot of the alternate history in the Watchmen graphic novel revolves around a completely different outcome of the Vietnam War. Okay. And you'll kind of see Vietnam is
they did mention
very
that
different
in this episode, right?
I believe so.
That Vietnam is now a state.
She mentions
that
she was born there.
Yeah, she was born in Vietnam and then moved to the States, became a cop.
And she is opening a Vietnamese bakery like that. Yeah. So there's kind of odd relationships there. But yeah, so that is I don't know. We're playing real fast and loose. I'm just kind of
yeah, that's a tough one to know how much to reveal. I mean, and I haven't seen the show, so I don't know how important that reveal is or whatever. So I think another interesting thing that's probably, once again, I'll let you take the lead on this one. But like, there's a Russian man working for the.
I did notice that.
The police department, who is very Russian. Even his costume, it kind of invokes Russia. So it's like,
like Russian.
Does he go by? Don't they call him Red?
Yeah.
And
so that's also kind of something with, the history of Watchmen, of kind of how relationships are kind of different between Russia now.
Yeah.
I would guess that's what it's going for. I don't know. A lot has happened in that mythical universe between what I've seen of the comic book and movie versus what's happening in the show. So I don't know what's happened in between that time. But yeah, I thought that was interesting to have that.
And I will say there are some things like there are just kind of world things in this that don't end up being fully explored or like totally, they don't totally dive into or explain a lot of that stuff. It's just kind of like, yeah, shit's different now.
Yeah.
This is not our world, but also it very much is.
Okay, part of world building though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is like the background is there, even if you don't get all of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of the best world building does that. I mean, you look at the two examples that always come to mind are Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that's left out that they don't stop to explain. That's very different from world building. I feel like nowadays is I feel like there always has to be someone to stop and give you exposition on like every new thing you see, whereas I know the best stuff is done by living in the world, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited you guys are watching the show. I'm just excited to see you guys' perspectives kind of as we go along too, because I'm sure there are things that are going to stick out to you guys that I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's just the way it is because it's Watchmen. And I haven't even thought about why it's that way. But yeah.
Can I just say, I didn't know that Watchmen had anything to do with actual watches or clocks or anything like that.
I didn't either.
That was like a big like issue as I was watching. Like, oh, okay, watches. All right, Watchmen. I got it. They're not just like, okay, superheroes watch over people or not. Like, that's what I was getting, but we got watch batteries. It's a big deal, I guess. Like, okay.
Is it I don't know. Okay, yeah. What is everyone's name? Do you know everyone's names?
So, I'm trying to remember now that there's Angela Abar, who is Regina King, who is
our main
the nun.
protagonist, at least right now.
Exactly. I'm trying to remember the name of. There's Wade, who is I'm trying to remember with the
reflective
Tim Blake Nelson. Looking Glass, I think, is his like hero name or whatever. Judd is the Chief Judd Crawford is the police chief. Yeah.
Is Judd the one that has? He said he was like writing something like a script or something called The Watchmaker's Son. Who was that?
No, that was a British.
That guy.
That's that guy.
That rich guy.
That rich guy.
Was he? What was?
What are your thoughts on him?
He rides up on a horse and then is getting like a leg massage naked while he's typing something out.
Was that what it was? That was not my impression that was what that was.
Didn't she say something about his thighs being really chapped or something?
I mean, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to think it was something else at first, but then like as it goes on, you're like, oh, it's
which makes it a little weirder, honestly. Like if it was just something sexual, like okay, he's rich, he's weird, but like this is I don't know, like this feels weirder.
Yeah. It gets weirder.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm very fascinated because
the
character in the comic book is not like this. You could make an argument to see him get to that point for sure, but he wasn't like that at the time in the 80s. It wasn't like that in the 80s.
Back in my day.
Yeah, I mean, like what you mentioned as well, the theme of watches and time and countdowns and all of that, like that all I think is also operates on this huge theme above the show and around the show itself, which is really cool. And I think also like is a great adaptation of themes from the book, from the comic book. They're really cool. But yeah, we'll learn more about. I'm just going to call him Thigh Master for now. Bath time Thigh Master.
Chappy Thigh Master.
Yeah. We'll learn more.
Pappy Chappy.
I love that that's how this episode ends, because it's like we've been all over like time in this episode, like kind of jumping through, and this is by far like just the most out of left field thing that we're seeing of like, all right, this guy's taking baths and eating cake. This is some real
Takes
real
one
good
bite
stuff.
too, and then waves it away.
Yeah.
Fucking weirdo.
The horseshoe thing was really disturbing.
Do you want to cut the cake or whatever it was?
Yeah.
That's a horseshoe.
Why did that make me so upset?
Well, so I feel like I can say this. At first, I was like refraining from saying this because I'm like, but then I realized, oh, I don't know shit. Because those two characters, I've never seen before.
Sure.
So I assume they're robots.
Like the servants?
That would be
that
my
are there?
guess. Is that they're robots,
Oh,
and that
okay.
like they.
Okay.
That's why he's like stupid, kind of, is like hands him a horseshoe, and that why they're so like gung ho. Like no normal human would be like, oh, I get to rub your gross old thighs. I made you a cake.
I mean,
We love you.
Listen, there are some humans out there that look at Jeremy Irons even now. Like, I'd rub them.
I mean, Jeremy Irons is posting shit like that on Craigslist. I'm sure he'd get some bites.
He looks good for however old he is.
That's
Just
true.
gonna say.
Yeah, there's something about Jeremy. That's like maybe one of my favorite pieces of casting in this show too. He really fucking just gives a performance. Okay, let's talk about Angela and the chief. Let's just talk about the police force, I guess. Just kind of like talking about those characters there, because you mentioned we do have this attack at the beginning, and the idea also that there's this group, this white supremacist group, essentially, that has been underground that is now resurfaced, and that's causing this upheaval in procedure, and the way that they're going to handle this group, as opposed to the other like how they have been handling things, and I guess what are you guys' impressions of Angela and the Chief's relationship, I guess? Because it is a really interesting... I guess like when I first watched this, it felt interesting to me, just because of what a close relationship they had outside of work, while also just like fucking doing cocaine in each other's houses or whatever. You know what I mean? There's like a really weird dynamic there, I think. But I guess with those characters, what are you guys' impressions of those characters? Yeah.
Well, like on the police force, on the job, they both made me very uncomfortable and very, stop it. But then we go to this, very normal dinner scene with a little bit of cocaine. And it was a really interesting...
Still falls into very normal.
Very normal. Yeah, no.
What are you not telling me? I don't know. It was a good, interesting juxtaposition between, heavily militarized police action and family dinner. And it kind of threw me for a loop. Like I started to wonder, is this like a father-daughter dynamic? Is it mentor-apprentice? Like what? Yeah, I didn't quite know what to make of it, honestly.
Yeah. For sure. Well, and I think, I guess this is another thing I want to talk about too, is like her relationship to the police force is an interesting one, because she's not in the police uniform that we see early on with the yellow mask. Like she is obviously this very separate thing, and she's also opening a bakery. Like, and it's
maybe question mark.
Exactly. Yeah. What is that actually? Is it, and I think that raises a lot of interesting questions. But
she also preemptively brings in a suspect before being ordered to, and the chief's just like, okay, like,
right.
And she gets away with it,
right? Which I think is like a kind of a horrifying like thing of like, yeah, they do have all these restrictions on him, except for the ones that don't.
Yeah.
Like there still is apparently just a group of people who can do whatever the fuck they want. You know? And that also has this obvious weird connotation to that, where it's like, yeah, I mean, there are rules, but also
they all
we're
got
the ones
each
that
other's
are going to
back.
enforce them. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Poor Panda Guy's like, you guys are gonna regret this, and everyone's like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
We want guns.
Clean your mask. That's what I would have told Panda Guy. It's like, listen, I'm on your side, but it's hard to defend your points when you
No one's gonna
don't
listen
wash
to
your mask.
you. So you get some Clorox on that shit.
Yeah. Anyways, I think one of my favorite scenes visually in this episode 2 is the interrogation, just in that fucking cool ass gross murder pod of a room with just flashing images and stuff. Again, it's like, it's one of those, that scene also reminded me of like Blade Runner a little bit, you know what I mean? And the god damn it, what's it called in Blade Runner, the test they have to take,
nozzle.
the Voight-Comte, is
Voight-
that what it's called?
Something close to that.
Something like that. The baseline test or whatever, or in 2049, and then the other one identifies them. But it's such a like disorienting and like just built to like break down and like get to these base things that you know. But yeah, I feel like that's one of the other things I love about this show is just the design and the way that they have altered our world just enough that it like is still like very believable, but so foreign and alien to us as viewers is really, really, I think, fascinating and cool.
Never saw a fucking blimp. Feel cheated.
Yeah.
The original graphic novel had like this obsession with blimps that I don't understand.
There was one that was advertising a show or a movie.
The American Hero or whatever it was.
Apparently I missed it.
I think there was like it's like the Goodyear blimp, but not Goodyear.
Oh, when they were
was
advertising the Minutemen
enormous.
thing with Hooded Justice.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. Just real briefly. So one of my favorite parts of the comic book is within Watchmen, there is this comic book within the comic book that has all these thematic ties and is a really fascinating part of the Watchmen comic book. Attempted to adapt that for the movie, which is a bad fucking idea because the whole point of the comic book is it's a commentary on comic books coming from a comic book in the world of the
Should
comic
have made
book
a
you're reading.
movie in a movie.
Exactly. Something like that. But that's something they do in this is you're seeing advertised a show that is about these vigilantes, that is a TV show within this TV show that, spoiler, we're going to see clips of. Like, you're going to see parts of this media in the world that help you understand what people know about, like what people in the world know about versus what you know about the world. And it's, again, it's so cool. I love that shit. Anyways, so man, this comic book's so good. This show's so good. We've kind of talked about a lot of stuff, and that's kind of, I feel like this episode really is about establishing a lot of the themes and kind of the tone of what you're about to watch. Were there any other things that you guys wanted or like dying to talk about plot wise? Because there is more stuff we can talk about, but there's also some of it's like we probably will revisit a lot of this kind of as we go forward. You know, there's a lot of information here, but
I have a couple questions. It's not about like the world of the show or the themes or anything. This is like our world.
Yeah.
Like if anybody else has anything about the show specifically, we should probably talk about that first. But like anybody? No.
I mean, I do want to touch on the Rorschach group a little bit because I feel like we haven't talked about them. I don't know how much we can go into without talking about the events of the graphic novel, but I find them fascinating.
Yeah. The 7th Cavalry is what they're
called. The 7th Cavalry. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of ideas present there. How am I going to do this? So it's clear that they're white supremacists, but it seems like there's more to them than just racism. Mm-hmm. Like there's other motivating factors for what they're trying to accomplish. We don't know why they're collecting old school button batteries. Just we know that they're collecting old ones over new ones for a reason.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Did they explain that reason in this episode?
That it was because they're like the old ones were explosive or something. I can't remember.
Synthetic lithium, or I don't remember.
The one that
what
gives you
the exact
cancer
word was.
Yeah. The old ones give you cancer, which like rings a bell for something else in the graphic novel. I'm really interested to see where this group goes, because that video presentation, also some of the language he uses is language a character from the graphic novel, like verbatim uses this type of lingo, and some of it's direct quotes from him, and just how that fits into their ideas of willing to defend their battery collection by blowing the shit out of cows.
And I think that one of the things that Gwen mentioned, like going back to even the question that they ask in the interrogation, like the idea of, do you believe that government conspiracies are attached to significant world events? You know what I mean? It's like it also paints this very clear analog and connection to our world while being completely different.
Which the connection they're making to that character, to the connection that's being made to the people in our world, is so good. It was like such a way I never thought about that. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And it's really cool how you did that. I'm excited for you guys to like eventually watch, like read the comic book or whatever, watch the movie. I don't know how we're gonna do this, but lots of good connections.
One thing that I noticed, I think in that scene when they're taking the batteries out, I think this is where I saw it. There's a poster that's got like a Captain America analog on it, and then next to it, it's "Keep the riffraff out." And I can't remember. I think it was in that scene, but I just thought it was really interesting that it was Captain America, not Captain America.
Yeah.
So I'm watching for more of that.
Yeah, it's in the trailer when they pull him out and Andrea looks.
Oh
at
yeah,
it.
okay.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, like this show, because when I first saw the trailer for the show, I'm like, I don't know about this, like, because Watchmen, I feel like it's so much focus of the Watchmen is on, like I don't know if you call them heroes. You definitely hesitate to call them heroes after you read it. But like the costumed vigilantes type of thing, like they're a lot more traditionally comic booky. Like they're a lot larger than life. Their costumes are very like ornate and wacky and crazy, and like they feel. That's something about the comic book and the movie especially that I'm like, do these people have powers?
Yeah, for sure.
Are you all just super strong, or are you normal people, or is it just stylized? And it's hard to know what's going on with them. So it's like that's not present here in the show.
Yeah,
like I'm very convinced all these masked people are just human beings with no like mutations or powers or anything. Whereas both comic book, but especially the movie, I was like, what is going on here?
See, and when they were running into machine gun fire and hiding behind cows, I was like, that's really fucking brave. Like, that no body armor, no like.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, I mean, I could see being on set and be like, well, we got to blow up some cows.
Blow up cows.
If we got them.
They shipped us the dead cows.
Wait, what was that?
That guy from I got Oh Brother Where Art Thou on my mind right now, because it's sitting in our TV stand waiting to be watched so that I can force Gwen to like it.
We've got a pitch for you.
I hate cows more than I hate coppers.
Wait, have you seen it before?
I have, and I fucking hated it.
Oh,
okay.
So we've got a pitch for a new series after the next couple.
Oh, good. Okay.
I fucking hated this.
During the break.
Now I have to watch it.
Oh, what a great name for a podcast.
Yeah, that's all I had, though. So I want to hear this suspenseful question from Justin.
I'm curious, real world, like, demographic or numbers, like, obviously HBO is writing the post Game of Thrones subscription numbers, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. Like, how has this show done as far as like its reception? Is it considered successful? Because it's pretty high budget based on what I've seen. Like, it's not the highest of budget of show, but it looks good. It seems like the production was expensive.
Dead cows.
Yeah,
CGI cows.
A lot of stuff like that. It seems like they put quite a bit of money into it. How is it done, and do people like it?
Yeah, I critically, it's been very well received, and at least just basing it kind of off the volume of conversation that was going around it while it was on, it seemed like a lot of people watched it. there's a lot of, I mean, we could fucking get into fandoms all day. They are bad. Fandoms suck ass. And you can find just a bunch of bullshit. But also, like, critically, the show is very well received. Nominated for several Emmys. I can't remember if it won, but performance-wise, like actors and actresses from this show were nominated. It was also nominated for writing and I think like outstanding drama series. Like kind of like across the board was nominated for stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, and that's yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, wow, the show did really well. You can definitely expect a season 2, but this is not necessarily one of those shows. You know, if we're talking about the kind of the world around that, I really doubt we'll get a season 2. Damon Lindelof does not want to do a season 2.
Does it? I mean,
most
maybe you
fans
don't want
are
to answer
pretty
that, but
happy with how it ended, though,
Yes,
and
yeah.
don't want a season 2.
I don't want a season 2. Yeah. I don't think so. But yeah, it does. This is a self-contained. It's a 9-episode thing. Pretty self-contained. I mean, outside of having to have knowledge of a graphic novel if you're, you know, wanting to pick up on those things or whatever. Like, I guess we'll let you guys decide how like well that works as we get to the end. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. But yeah, a lot of the actors who are in it have also expressed that, like, if Damon Lindelof says he doesn't want to do one, I'm definitely not doing another season of the show with someone else. So,
Cool.
But yeah.
Yeah, I've got like, I need to go do some research or something, because I've got like all these thoughts about like how HBO comes up with ideas and who their target audience is and everything, because the audience for the show doesn't feel super broad, almost like it feels very targeted. And so, like, I don't know, just the financial side of things, I'm curious to know like how they put all that together. Well, I don't know, just kind of cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely think, you know, if you're doing something like this, like Watchmen is one of those licenses that, I mean, it was the first real graphic novel I read. You know what I mean? I feel like that's probably similar for a lot of people, because they've been selling it at Barnes and Noble for, you know, before they started carrying every other graphic novel. It was just one of those things that was kind of a fixture. But I think it's also worth noting, Damon Lindelof is a huge fan of Watchmen, and I think he was a big driving force. And this was after he had done The Leftovers for HBO, which we've also talked about watching in the future, which was, I think, a series that didn't quite get its due, at least from fans. Like, critically, it did very well, and now, like, there are a lot more people that have watched it than when it was on. And so it feels like this might have been one of those things too, where it's like, we have this creative who has this idea, we like what he's done in the past, let's throw some resources to him, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's fascinating.
That's great.
He's Damon Lindelof too, like, a lot of really great interviews about this show in particular. He's really great. I've really come around on him since I watched his stuff that isn't lost, or just scripts he wrote. Yeah, anyways, very good.
So thank you, Game of Thrones, for bringing us
for at least doing
Watchmen.
something right.
Yeah.
Giving HBO so much money that they can actually do stuff like this now.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that was on purpose that they ended so shitty. It was like, now they want something to fill the void. Let's give it to them.
Well, great. I think we'll kind of wrap discussions there, because there's a lot of other stuff to talk about, but like I said, we'll be revisiting a lot of this, and like a lot of this will be coming up later. So I just think it's good to kind of figure out the tone and start to feel what this show is, because it goes some real wild places that are really fun. But yeah, if you want to talk to us about Watchmen or whatever, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. You can talk to us. I'm saying I don't give a shit what you talk to us about. Fuck, goddamn. You can reach out to us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at rewatcherspod. Next week, we are going to watch the next 2 episodes. So we'll get kind of a little bigger chunk, get into the world a little bit more, and kind of see what forces are at work. And we'll go ahead and take a break, and then be back to talk about some recommendations outside of Watchmen. Welcome back to the recommendation section of Rewatchers on the pod / We Watches the Watchmen. We're workshopping still. Justin, fill us in on the last 6 weeks of your life. Is
I
that
think
what
so.
we're about?
It's been a while, yeah. So I think the last time I talked about this, I had kind of like said what I was doing as far as like what the plan was when it came to playing Destiny and kind of why I was playing so much. I had gotten back into it just for fun. My brother texted me and was like, "Hey, I saw you were playing. We're going to try and do something called a day one raid completion when the new raid came out for the new expansion that was just released last month." And he was like, we need a sixth person. If you are interested, it's going to be a lot of work, but it should be fun. I agreed to it, and then I played Destiny. I have 220 hours logged in Steam.
On like a new playthrough?
I hadn't played on Steam at all until I had started playing this.
I don't know if I've put that many hours into a game on Steam. Combined with a PlayStation, maybe, but
yeah. So yeah, that's all within the last like month and a half, 2 months total. So just to kind of report on how the raid went. So I grinded forever to get ready for the raid, which took place on a Saturday at I think it started raid release at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. It took us 11 hours and 55 minutes, I think, to complete it. And out of I think there were about 320,000 raid attempts on day one. There were close to 30,000 completions, and we were in the top 850
nice.
People who completed it. Yeah, so our team of 6.
Is that just a time thing? Like
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So it's based on time. Like there's in the Destiny community, and I guess gaming community in general, like a day one Destiny raid completion is a pretty big deal. It was like there were 350,000 people watching streams of Destiny on Twitch that day. The day there's a race to be like the first team to complete it because you get this really cool. They call it a raid belt, which is just, it looks like a wrestling belt, basically, that all of the team members for the first completion get, and the bragging rights, obviously, that come from that, and all of the Twitch subscribers and stuff.
Destiny and the belt.
Well, and to kind of like clarify what a raid is, it's kind of this chunk of brand new content, and especially in Destiny, using game mechanics in weird ways, lots of different puzzle elements.
Yeah, it's basically, so the raid is made up of multiple encounters, is what they're called. And the way that Destiny handles things is they'll introduce a mechanic like in the first encounter, and you kind of have to figure out what's going on. It's a puzzle that you and your 5 teammates have to solve. It's like a room that there's clues in the environment or the enemies that you're killing that you have to kind of piece together. And if you don't do it, you die. Everybody on your team dies. It's called a wipe. And so you get this, for example, this raid that we did, the first encounter, well, the first main encounter, there's a race at the beginning of the raid that is kind of different, but it's still a lot of fun. But anyways, the first main encounter, there's like these items that drop from enemies that when you pick them up, you have like this text on your screen that says like operator or scanner or something. And you find out by kind of exploring the environment that the operator is able to interact with things that nobody else can interact with. The scanner is able to see things that nobody else can see. And the room is the main room is split into 2 sides, and your team, like you have 3 people on one side, 3 people on the other. And it quickly becomes like this game of like, okay, how do we use these items? How do we pass them around to people to interact with all of the things in the environment to basically get out of this room? It's like an escape room, basically. And there's like damage stuff that you have to factor in. Like once you pass the items around to people and they've like hit all the right switches or whatever, then this thing lights up in the middle of the room. You have to damage it. If you don't damage it in the right order, you die. So the game mechanic of the operator to scanner is like kind of the main thing that's introduced. And then the encounters that come after that build on that idea, and things just kind of get more complicated to where basically everybody on the team has a role that they have to do, and you have to orchestrate it all together at the same time in order to complete the encounter. and you're dealing with enemies that are spawning. You've got to do damage to a boss at the end of the raid. That took us the longest. We were on the final boss for about 5.5 hours, just trying to figure out how do we actually do enough damage to him to kill him. It was a DPS race, basically, the final encounter. But yeah, so each of the encounters, it's all about these game mechanics that get built on, and all of that aside, I've got to say, completing this was possibly the coolest gaming experience of my life. Like, I've thought about it a lot, and all of the really great games that I've played, like, I don't think Destiny is like one of my. It's a fun game, but I wouldn't say it's like the best game I've ever played. However, the raid experience is one of the best things I have ever done in a game, and like the payoff that comes after playing with the same people for 12 hours and the teamwork that you have to go through and just putting it all together, like I have never felt anything like that before. It was incredible. And like it made all of the time just sitting on my ass for the weeks prior to that, getting ready for it, grinding to get my character ready and having the items that I needed. It felt like it was worth it. I ordered the raid jacket that you get, if you complete the raid within like the first week and a half or something of its release, then you get a code sent to you in an email, and it's like, hey, you can now buy this jacket from us. It's like, you qualified to buy more shit from our store. So like, all right, you got me. I'll pay for it because I'm one of 20,000 people in the world who has this jacket now.
Sure, yeah.
Or however many
Probably
of those 20,000
yeah.
people actually bought it. So and it won't show up until June, and it's a freaking parka, so it'll be good for next year. But yeah, anyways, it was a good time, and I'm glad that I did it. And I would recommend, my recommendation is if you get a chance to play, like going through the Destiny raids is fun. Like you can do that just kind of whenever. If you need a group, there's lots of LFG apps, and in game you can look for a team if you want to play or whatever. But if you get the chance to actually go for a day one raid completion, I would highly recommend it. Even if you don't complete it, there were teams that took as long. Like I was reading on Reddit, there were multiple people commenting about how one of the encounters, it took them 15 or 16 hours just to get through one of the encounters, which was longer than it took us to do the entire raid. Right. Which I'm not saying that that's like we're special by any means. We were just able to put things together quicker than other teams, and we had a dedicated group to do it too. Like we knew each other. We weren't a bunch of randoms piecing it together. Yeah. But if you get a chance to find a team, and I'll probably be doing this in the future, I think, because I had so much fun. So if you need somebody, let me know. But if you can, do it because it was a lot of fun. So that's my rec. Here's my Destiny podcast. I think I'll be done talking about Destiny now. I'm going to keep playing, but I probably won't talk about it anymore because Cyberpunk's coming out. So that's going to be the next.
There we go.
Is it?
Presumably.
Well, yeah, supposedly. Until it's downloaded, until I'm like pressing A to start,
yeah,
I will not count on that. Cool. That's crazy. Just hearing that is like, that's a lot of work.
It was
a
ton of fun.
Cool.
I can't stress that enough. Like, for as flawed as Destiny is, the monetization stuff, that it has everything bad about it that the gaming industry has going on. But there's like, it's a game that, man, you hate it, but you love it at the same time. Because there's shit like this raid. Like there's nothing like it. There is nothing I've ever done that was like this. So yeah,
awesome. All right. Well, I've got a couple recommendations. The first one I want to talk about is actually a movie that came out, I think, 3 years ago. I think it came out in 2017, maybe 2016. It's called Ingrid Goes West. It's got, what's her name?
Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, Aubrey Plaza and Elizabeth Olsen. Basically, I mean, it's not the best movie I've ever seen. You get this from the trailer. The whole point of the movie is basically social media bad, make you crazy. And it's a little ham-fisted, but Aubrey Plaza is real fucking good. And she is also in a movie that's just come out called Black Bear that I am very excited to see, mostly because I watched Ingrid Goes West, and I was like, holy shit, Aubrey Plaza is she's great. I think she has this reputation that is like, also that she's just this very like quirky and kind of trolly star, and most people know her from Parks and Rec, which she's great in. But man, Ingrid Goes West is just full on unhinged Aubrey Plaza, and it is a real joy to watch. And also just real gross. But yeah, I would definitely recommend that if you're looking for something. Again, it's not like a huge investment. It's not trying to say anything that you don't already know, but it's pretty fun. The other thing that I've been putting a ton of time into is the new Yakuza game, which is now the 8th Yakuza game I've played this calendar year. But man, it's so good. Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's a new protagonist. They have gone from the brawling combat to now it is just a straight up fucking JRPG. And you realize, oh, these games have always been JRPGs. It's just the combat was not turn based. And now it is. And basically the whole setup for that is that the character grew up playing Dragon Quest, a very famous JRPG. And that's the way he thinks about combat.
Dragon Quest?
They reference Dragon Quest specifically.
Oh, wow.
There are sound bites from Dragon Quest, like when you level up your bonds with certain characters.
By the same publisher?
They are not.
Oh.
Because Dragon Quest is Square. Sega has made this. But also, there is a bar that you hang out in, and you can collect CDs and songs that will play in the bar, and there's Persona 5 music that you can get. So there's also like some weird cross-promotion stuff with Atlas. But it's so good. This game is just as cheesy and melodramatic in all the best ways as the other games. The story maybe isn't landing with me as much as I just played Yakuza 6, which is kind of Kiryu's, the character you've been playing as forever, like his last game. So that has like this really great button on it. This obviously isn't reaching those heights because you haven't spent hundreds and hundreds of hours with Ichiban Kasuga yet, but it's really good. I think it's really fun. All the summons are fucking ridiculous. You basically do side quests, and then the characters that you help become these summons that you call on you have an app called Pound Mates, which originally is like, oh, this is a sex thing, huh? And then it's like, oh no, the guy who showed up is ready to fight my enemies. And so you kind of collect these summons that you can get. My favorite of which is a recurring character who's a chicken, who basically in every Yakuza game, if you ever have a management thing where you're like managing real estate or something, you always have a chicken as your employee whose stats are just out of this fucking world. You want him in charge of your ramen stand. And he basically... his summon, he jumps in and pops out an egg that will either fully replenish your HP or MP. That he just farts this egg into, or I guess. Why am I just now realizing that? I'm an idiot.
None of us questioned it. We were like, yeah.
Just farts this egg into a bowl of rice that you snarf down. It's real good. It's real fucking good. It's stupid, and I like. My brother was watching me play it, and like, there's this very heavy cutscene of just like, there's this whole kind of story about like trafficking, like human trafficking that's happening in this town, and it's like very like heavy. And then the next thing you know, I'm like in this room with a bunch of grown men dressed as babies, and it's just like, but it works somehow. Anyways, Yakuza's great. I'm also going to talk about wrestling real quick because this week, on this last Wednesday, was probably one of the biggest and most important wrestling shows of like the last 10 years. AEW did a show, and I sent Justin the clip of one thing that happened. That wasn't even the biggest thing that happened, but Sting is back, which is a huge fucking deal. And it is just
how long has he been retired? ?
So I mean, he's had a couple matches in like WWE. His contract with WWE just came up in the summer, but he was on a Legends contract, so it means he'll show up once a year, have a match. In 2015, he injured his neck, and probably wasn't ever going to wrestle again. I don't know that I doubt we'll probably see him wrestle very much at all. But he is just one of these. I feel like he is a wrestler that has never truly gotten his full due. And so to see him come back in AEW is really awesome. And him and Darby Allin just had this fucking stare down.
Shit. I was going to ask you, man.
It was so cool.
I'm not following wrestling as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
Darby Allin and...
Dude.
Oh, before I say this, last man I said this about, things went very badly about a week after I said it. So, Darby Allin's my new boy. And... but honestly, that for the first time I watched with you, that match between him and Sammy was mind blowing.
Incredible.
I was like, wow, okay, this is the thing I've been waiting for and missing out on and not getting. Like that's what made it all click for me. And that was like still I feel like one of the best matches I've seen.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm glad that they're apparently still using him, and is he being utilized more?
Yeah,
or?
so he like about a month ago he actually took the TNT championship. So now he has a belt, and he's in this long running feud with Ricky Starks where he like hammered tacks through his skateboard deck and jumped on someone's back with it, and one of the gnarliest like bumps I've ever seen. But yeah, and I was telling Justin, for the last little while, he has been doing... Sting used to do this thing in Nitro where he would just be in the rafters and, like, randomly during a match, one of the announcers would be like, "Oh, my God, it's Sting!" And just a single spotlight, and he's just hanging out in the rafters, just watching shit. And Darby Allin has been doing something very similar. But yeah, Sting basically came to the ring and everyone was afraid of him. And then he went up to Darby Allin and Darby Allin just stared him down. And it was like this really fucking great thing. But the other big thing that is possibly the biggest thing to happen in the wrestling business in many, many years is the main event of the episode on Wednesday was a match between Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley for the World Championship. During which... one of the people on commentary is one of the vice presidents of Impact Wrestling, which is another wrestling promotion. He kind of interfered in the match. Kenny Omega got an unfair advantage, won the match, immediately took the belt, and left with this guy who is the president of another wrestling promotion. As they were just running through the backstage and getting into this giant SUV, he turned around and he's like, "If you want to hear what the fuck Kenny Omega has to say, you can watch Impact Wrestling on Tuesday." So they now have this, they're working with this other promotion to do something. Not entirely sure what it is. Famously, like, that has not happened in like 50 years that you have wrestling promotions like this blatantly like working together. And also to have AEW's championship belt ripped from their show, and their champion isn't even going to appear on their show before he's on a different wrestling promotion is really cool. Hopefully that means we're going to see a bunch of other random bullshit of wrestling companies working together and doing wild, wild stuff. No better time to watch wrestling. Do it. That's all. Gwen.
Holy shit.
I don't know if I can follow that, man.
That's my screed. That's it. Do it.
All right. Well, first things first. Don Shard and Rhythm of War came out, which are Stormlight 3.5 and 4, and holy...
You can have a 3.5?
Yeah. It was a novella.
It's a novella, but it's like a full-on a full-on
so it's like
novel.
300 pages.
Is that how that's the right word, right?
Yeah.
Novel.
Yeah.
A novella that's 1,000 pages?
I think it was technically a novel, but it was supposed to be a novella, but it's Brandon Sanderson, so...
No, it's not. That one isn't 1,000 pages. The novella, Don Chart, is like, how many pages?
It's
like a couple hundred?
novel length. Like, barely over the limit that makes it a novel, I think.
But not 1,000, right?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It felt like 1,000. It was great. It was amazing.
Can we get this
I'm
guy
still
like hanging
geeking
out with George so that we can get fucking Winds of Winter?
Yeah, see, everyone says that, and then Brandon Sanderson just talks up George and is like, "He's so great. He's awesome. We're so different. He didn't like my books." But he does genuinely seem to have a really high opinion of him. But like, I'm honestly still geeking out about the stuff that happened in book 4, and I kept texting Truman in the middle of the night, freaking out, and I'm mad at Justin because he's not reading fast enough. Oh my gosh. But the thing I want to talk about...
How could you?
Go! The thing I want to talk about is one of the viewpoint characters we get this book is Navani, who is an older woman. She is a mother and a grandmother, but her arc is not about her being a mother or a grandmother or even a wife. And it's amazing, and I needed it. And I can't really think of a sci-fi or a fantasy book other than maybe The Expanse with Avara Sala, where we get an older woman who has children and is a wife, but her arc is not about those things. And like, those stories are obviously important, and it's good that we have them, but it's important to me that we have the stories that aren't those things. And it was really great, guys. Please go read those books. How many
are there supposed to be?
5 at first.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
10 total.
Yeah.
But you're going to want to read...
Wait, he doubled his book count?
No, it was originally planned to be 10 books, but the first, cycle, the first...
Era?
Era
is that
of
what
the
he's
book
calling it?
is 5.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Yeah. But you're going to want to read the whole Cosmere to get the details.
Which is
Mistborn. It's just not happening right now.
Everything else.
I have read all of Mistborn.
And
I've read Elantris.
Okay.
You've got the bulk of it done.
You need to read Warbreaker.
Are they in the same universe? I thought they were different.
They're in the same universe, different planets.
Does that matter?
It does.
Okay, that sucks because I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. I just remember at some point in Mistborn, they have the Unabomber shed in the church, and she goes into the Unabomber shed.
So it's also in our universe.
What?
Have you seen that picture of the Unabomber shed that the FBI has in their storage? It's very surreal.
I don't have it ready.
No, but it's creepy. It's in a parking garage, and there's just this shed. It looks amazing. It looks like, oh my gosh, this movie I want to see. No, it's just the FBI. But now do you know what I'm referencing? The building within the building.
Oh yes, yes I do. Okay, yeah.
Anyway, it was a reference that I thought was going to land better back then.
I need to do my Unabomber research.
Unabomber,
Oh, I just did it because I saw that picture, and the other night I'm like, Wikipedia, how I learned about all my serial killers.
But yeah, guys, it's great, and I need to freak out about it with more people, so please read it. Next thing, The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. So the premise is that after a certain amount of time, cities come alive in the form of people. So the city gains semi-sentience and chooses an avatar or avatars. And so this book is centered around New York coming alive. It was so fucking good. I think in the first hour, I ran downstairs and pulled off Justin's headphones and made him listen to a fight scene that I still am stuck on. It was incredible and different and weird, and it's a very soft magic system, which I don't always like, but for this book it felt so good, and I have a hard time finding words for how I felt about this book. It made me want, for the first time, to live in New York. Never wanted that in my entire life, but after reading this, I'm like, I kind of wish I lived there so I could get it like a New Yorker would. And
we're all trying to get it like a New Yorker would. That's just,
It just looked like it hurt my feelings, and it made me cheer, and it hurt my feelings, and I was like, oh, why am I feeling this? I need to go sit down. It was great. So you guys, please read that one too. N.K. Jemisin. And then I think I'll talk about The Blade itself next week, because I'm only about a third of the way in. But there's a torturer, and I'm interested.
How many Audible credits do you go through?
I mostly listen on Libby.
Oh, well, does that work better than Audible?
Work better how?
I mean, I had no. Well, okay, let's wait. Do you got anything else to recommend? Because this is actually going to some of my anti-recommendations.
No, I'll be done.
I'm not going to recommend books. Fuck reading. Listening to
You're
books.
not far off. I'm so frustrated.
I'm not even sold on the written word.
One of your problems with audiobooks is the narrator, right?
I mean, yes, but I found one that I like. The problem is Audible's bullshit.
Yes, Audible has lots of bullshit.
Why?
Because they're Amazon and because they can.
It doesn't make any sense. It seems like you could make more money if you let people buy fucking credits, you know?
You can buy credits.
You can?
Yeah.
How much do they cost? I couldn't find anywhere to do that.
They go on sale occasionally. I don't usually do it.
Well, it's like, but you also still have to like subscribe, right? Like you still have to.
I believe so.
So that's what's getting me, is because like it's not made for people like me.
No, it's
like who are going to read 2 books a year. Like I'm like, oh, you're going to charge me this much. I'm not going to finish my book by then. You're going to give me another credit for another book. How am I going to start another book? I'm going to have like 7 credits built up. What the fuck are you doing?
Well, do Libby then, because all you need is a library card, and Utah's online library gives you access to a massive library of books.
Okay, I might do that.
Yeah, and our city will reimburse you for getting one in one of the next 2 cities over, so you won't even have to pay for it.
All right, so my anti-recommendation on certain books, the Dragonlance series.
Oh, God.
I started. Have you read it?
Of course. I read that in junior high.
Yeah, it feels very junior high.
Yeah, it is.
It was recommended by everyone. I was like, I had just played Baldur's Gate. I'm like, I want more Dungeons and Dragons universe stuff. And everyone's like, Dragonlance Chronicles. I'm like,
no.
This is the most consistent recommendation. There's a lot of opinions out there. That was the only one that everyone agreed on. So I started reading it. I'm like, okay. I really hated the beginning. About, I don't know, 25% into it. I was like, okay, now it's starting to go somewhere I want to go. And then immediately I got halfway through and I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I don't give a shit about any of this. Also, how you're transitioning from spot to spot is very haphazardly and horribly done. So yeah, I'm no longer listening to that. And so I was like, what I really, really wanted though, after that was I've wanted this for a long time, not been able to find it. I love the mythos and lore and feel and tone of the Dark Souls and Demon Souls universe so much. I wanted something in narrative form that gave us more, because those games are not very narrative heavy. I wanted to feel those same feelings while feeling characters and exploring characters. So I was like looking up that, hard to find anyone recommending anything like that. I came across the Malazan book series again, which I already owned the first one and I hadn't read. Started listening to that again. Narrator, fantastic. Loved him.
He was good.
And the book is good. Have you read that?
I've read the first one, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm liking it. My sleep schedule just sucks right now. That's when I usually listen, so like I haven't been. And so I'm probably going to quit Audible because I'm not listening, and I'm like, so that dream died pretty quick. Anyway, but the Malazan book series so far, really good. I'm only about a fourth of the way in, but that first book is interesting, and the tone is kind of what I wanted. Not quite the same as the Souls games, but kind of there. That's all the books. Most of mine are anti-recommendations.
We're back, baby.
Tyler's grouchy.
But I am gonna this is a weird recommendation because I recommend it if you like just experimenting and listening to really weird shit. There's a band called Necrogoblicon.
Oh God.
Have you heard Necrogoblicon?
Yeah, yes.
Came up on my one of my suggested playlists, and holy shit! If you want to get weird, it's a mixture of, how would you describe Necrogoblicon? It's a mixture of definitely metal, but also like electronic emo.
Yeah,
and also a little bit of Weird Al dashed in there.
Okay. I don't think I've listened enough to get the Weird Al vibes, but
well, not in the sense of polka, just in the the goofy tone.
Just in the hair. Yeah.
They have a cover of Chop Suey, which is just disgusting and it's not listenable, but go listen to it. That's all I got for them. Speaking of which, System of a Down just released 2 new songs. One of them is good, one of them is bad.
I mean, that seems about on par with System of a Down.
Yeah. Okay, now for my real antis.
We've got tiers of antis.
I'm gonna tell you the 3 animes I bounced off.
Oh man, I'm just picturing people bouncing off anime.
So, I mean, I've been desperate for anything like fantasy sci-fi right now, and there's not enough like normal person TV that covers that. That's not just complete garbage. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll find another Dorohedoro in there somewhere. So I started with, I already forgot what it's called. Something about Banished from Paradise or something like that. Started watching this shit. And apparently the outside world is now dead. Everyone's consciousness lives in the computer. And
Wait,
like,
are you talking about the anime or us?
the
Because this is
and basically there's this so everyone's an avatar, and there's this woman who is get this, overly sexualized, and
You don't say.
and she's like a cop in the computer world, and there's a hacker trying to get in, and she's like trying to stop him, but then he gets away. Naturally, get this, to go into the data streams to catch the thing, she's naked, and
Of course.
then so already I'm like, huh.
well, I mean, data stream is hard to get out of your clothes. It's difficult. It's not fun.
So anyway, she can't catch him, and so she's like, she goes to like the high counselor or whatever, and they're like, get this guy's like he's a real person in the outside real world, and we need to send you to the real world to go find him and bring him in. And they're like, okay, you're gonna need a real body. And they're like, okay, we need to birth one really quick. Let's go through it. How long it's going to take? It's like, it's going to take 72 hours. Like, that's too long. Let's turn that time down. Oh, shit, it's only going to give me a 16-year-old's body. Guess we'll go with that. And then I'm now presented with 16-year-old nipples, and I'm like, I'm done. And I'm like, fuck. I was so just taken aback that I'm like, I'm pretty sure this one's Netflix produced. And I'm like, or at least it's one of those partner ones that they do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did they not watch this before?
Oh, you think Netflix is watching the anime they're throwing up on their site?
Although side recommendation. Just go through and read the synopsis of animes on Netflix. It's so damn entertaining. So yeah, I was like, wow, Japan, you have a problem. Let's try another one. So
it's starting to sound like you have the problem.
For some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to watch. Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? And it's actually there's actually some good qualities about this one. Banished from Paradise had nothing redeeming for it. This one has like the musical score is phenomenal. The tone of the show is quirky and fun. It's very much video game referencey. It's like there's this tower, and adventurers go in to gain experience points by killing monsters. They drop money and they gain experience. There's like some weird pseudo stuff they're trying to do with like there's like clans of adventurers, and each clan is owned by a god from like our world mythology. So there's like the Greek gods, and then there's like the Hindu gods, and they all have their own little clans that are of adventurers. So we're with which goddess is it? I can't remember. Some Greek goddess that I can't remember the name of now. She's kind of a failure, and so she gets this kid in her clan is the only person who's willing to join her clan. I don't know how old this girl is. How they present her is very short, but also very physically mature, but acts like a 5-year-old, right? Like, so, there's a lot of uncomfortable sexual tension between them. And already from my past experience, I'm like, this show was fun. I don't know how I feel now. So then I turned it to the English voice acting, and it's an older voice actor, so I felt a little more comfortable. But still very uncomfortable throughout this whole thing. And I watched about 3 episodes before I called it quits, because it's just, there's some fun ideas in there. It's quirky and weird, but there's too much anime bullshit in it. And that's when I didn't realize... These are all recent animes. I didn't realize it was still such a huge problem with mainstream anime that, that's an issue still. And, holy shit. So, the best one I watched was the last one I'll talk about. The last delay for Cyberpunk nearly tore my soul out. So I've been I need to just, either completely separate myself from the excitement of the genre, or I need to get balls deep in the genre. So I did the latter, and I started finding anything cyberpunk I could find, which led me to an anime called Ergo Proxy. And this one is a noir cyberpunk anime. The art style is exactly what I want from anime, which means probably weebs hate it. People are drawn with realistic sized eyes, or at least more realistic sized eyes, it's a lot more grounded. And it's got a lot of, you can tell the budget was a little bit lower. It's on Tubi, or there's a 720p version on YouTube. So how I'm watching is YouTube, and I watched the first episode in Japanese on YouTube. Then you can watch a whole one chunk video in English from episode 2 to the end.
Jesus, okay, yeah.
Which is 9 hours. So yeah, it revolves around very similar to the other one I mentioned, where there's a city and no one can live outside the city. But it's not a computer, so that's important.
How are you solving anime right now?
And, there's like this. You can definitely see the influences of Blade Runner. The main character is this woman who's like a detective, and she is. Oh, I totally forgot. Now I got another one I need to talk about. So yes, so she's like trying to solve this mystery because this like monster attacks her one night, and everyone's like, "You probably just hallucinated it. That monster didn't come into your bathroom at night." And like, then they, but there's lots of weird shit which I love. Like her grandfather's this dude in a wheelchair with a gas mask on. He doesn't talk, but guess who does talk for him? Statues of Greek gods all around, and they're like in this like throne room thing, and it does this cool weird thing where like every time the camera pans to one of them, it's like the last frame of their head turning, but like so you just see like this weird quick like
a movement.
It's very
almost like an out of your corner of your eye movement.
Yeah,
kind of thing?
it's very
Okay.
jarring and
That's
very
cool.
uncomfortable and very cool how they do that. Unfortunately, though, just like the whole mystery is like, oh, what is this monster? And that question's not interesting enough to me right now. Like, maybe the answer will be, but right now they've already answered enough of it that I'm like, why are we still going? You know? And so where they're going with it, I don't feel the need to immediately finish it. Maybe someday I will. But then that reminded me of how this whole shit started. I finally watched the original Ghost in the Shell anime movie.
Oh, boy.
Which, have you seen it?
I've seen parts of it. I've never watched the entire thing, though.
I actually, maybe my expectations were so low because of what I've heard from other people, but like, it's not perfect. I enjoyed it. It felt really fast, which I wasn't expecting. It is like an hour and 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, but it felt faster. It felt like 45 minutes, and there's nothing like narratively super it's like how I was talking about the Matrix earlier. I like watching it because it's very like self-indulgent and like yeah, like I don't know, there's just a lot of cool tonal things. I like the cyberpunk atmosphere of it. There's obviously some ridiculous stuff because it's an anime from the 80s, but yeah, it's just if you like the anime with the darker tone that's not trying to be too edgy though, yeah, it's a really good experience. I'm tempted to watch the live action movie because I've seen a lot of stuff in like those trailers that I'm like, oh, that's not a scene in this. I thought it was going to be like a lot more direct. So I heard it sucked ass, but I'm going to probably watch it at some point.
Nice.
Which then led me to watching. Apparently, there's a bajillion interpretations of Ghost in the Shell that I wasn't aware of. So I've tried 2 of them, and I watched the whole thing of one. That one's weird. It's like separated into 40-minute episodes.
That standalone complex.
Yeah, and there's like 3 or 4 of them. And I watched like the first 2, but then halfway through the second one, I was like, eh. So yeah, a lot of anti-recommendations. Don't watch Banished from Paradise, whatever the fuck it's called. You see it on Netflix. I mean, if you're, I don't know, maybe watch Don't Pick Up Girls in Dungeons or whatever the hell that one's called. If you, I don't know, are okay with that shit. Yeah. Ghost in the Shell, though, the original. That's my only like real recommendation, I guess. It was good. It's pretty good. Oh, gosh, sorry, I have so much. I got a PS5, which means I was playing Demon Souls Remake, which fucking that's the best thing I've done for the past while. Demon Souls I've not played ever. I've played all the Dark Souls. I played Bloodborne, Sekiro, all of it, and I just never had a PS3, and that was like the only way you could really play it. So I finally played it, and I love Blue Point's remakes. The Shadow of the Colossus remake is artistically, I mean, I fucking love that game. But to see it done with such rendered, so detailed, and that's what they do really well. They keep the gameplay intact of how it was, pretty much. but they make it a whole new experience by they did add some new animations for things and like fill in some gaps because the frame rate's a lot higher, and that all feels really good. But the world feels so real because of how dense geometrically everything is. Like how they filled in the empty space with new technology is just fantastic. And yeah, I just started my second playthrough today, and I would say that it does feel like a warm up for Dark Souls, though. Like, there's some things I like better about it. In some senses, it's a little easier, and in some senses, it's a little bit harder than Dark Souls, because you don't get checkpoint bonfires, which in this are called Arcstones. You don't get them until you've beaten a boss. So you do have to go through the whole section, beat the boss, and then you get a checkpoint, essentially. So that's the only thing that's like harder. The actual... There's no Anne Orlando Archer segment. There was only one spot in the game that really gave me like trouble, and it's a swamp. So you know how swamps be in the Souls games. Yeah, but I can't recommend that enough. I mean, it's hard to recommend that because it's like you have to buy a $500 console to play that.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing it's on, and it's a console you can't buy right now because people suck ass. But if you're a big Souls fan, I think this is a must if you're a Souls-like fan. And I'm excited to see. There's rumors of what Blue Point's doing next. There's rumors they're doing a Metal Gear Solid remake. There's rumors of a Bloodborne remake. And I would be very happy with either. 'Cause that's
a remake.
Yes, because there's that rumor. I don't know how. The source is the same source who gave both of those, but the reason I think that one is gaining a lot of popularity is because they didn't do any improvements to Bloodborne on PS5. All the other ones play at a higher steady frame rate, where Bloodborne still plays at 30. So it's like maybe they're not doing anything to it because they're remaking it.
It's gonna be like the Ultimate Edition or whatever.
Yeah, I mean
remastered or something.
I still haven't played that DLC, so
yeah, me either.
I would love that. But anyway, yeah, I PlayStation 5 real quick. I love it. The controller is. We'll see how it's used in the future. Astro's Playroom is a fucking revelation. Like, it's short. I love it. My wife loves it. My 3-year-old loves it. Like, that controller is something else if it's used right. In Astro's Playroom itself, it's used in a way that I am kind of dumbfounded by. You can feel. There's a section in the first level where it starts to rain, just drizzling, and you can feel like the rain, and then the rain gets heavier, and you can feel the difference between the heavy rain and the soft rain.
That's crazy.
It's very cool. Demon Souls didn't use it as well as I was hoping. It's kind of jank, actually. Like the bow, like you feel the tension in the bow when you pull it back, but if you start rapid firing the bow, it like misses shots. And so, but there was like a section that was cool where there's like a big heart thing in the level, and the closer you get to it, you can feel like the beat in the controller. So that's very cool. Spider-Man's boring as hell. I mean, I'd say that it's fun as hell, but like it's the same thing as Spider-Man. So I'm kind of just playing it whenever I don't have anything to play in like sections, because I don't find the story that interesting or compelling. I just want to swing around the city for a bit. So it's fine. Spider-Man's fine. Astro's Playroom is fantastic. I'm trying to think of any other games I have on there. I think those are all like the PS5 games I have. I've been playing like some PS4 games. They had updated Borderlands. All the guns now have like the resisting triggers, which is cool.
Cool. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about. They just added a new. Me and Josh have been playing Borderlands pretty regularly, and we just made it through the third of the 4 DLC packs, and we also have been playing the new mode that they did, which is called Arms Race, which basically removes all of your gear and abilities. So you're just a dude dropping into a thing, and it's kind of like a battle royale, kind of like closing thing, but you basically get to like. There's exclusive legendary loot in there that you have to either win or like take to a specific extraction point to like get into your, so you can use it in the rest of the game. But it's really cool and it's really fun. And I we just spent more money on this stupid. They did another season pass, which added like new skill trees, and I'm really fucking loving it. I do wish that game ran better on PS4.
That's the reason I don't
like
play
shit.
it more. It's because it's garbage on PS4.
Dude, yeah. So, I mean, this is going to be weird because this is also a critique and a praise at the same time. The praise part is on the PS5. You know that first eternal loading screen where Claptrap is going across the screen a bajillion times? It loads in 1.2 crossings of Claptrap as opposed to the 7 it took before. But I will say how it was kind of marketed beforehand. I feel like the word instantaneous was thrown around, which is bullshit. Like, the Demon Souls loads really fast. But I think that's the fastest game I have that loads. Spider-Man, that was the one that was touted as like being the fastest. Like I still had points where I was like, oh, I should pull out my phone. Granted, by the time I looked at my phone, it was loaded, but like the word instantaneous to me is like 5 seconds where I'm waiting 12, which doesn't sound like, it's not a big deal, but I feel a little bit robbed because I was expecting to be blown away, and like I was just kind of like, oh, it's just faster. Yeah. And
I mean, based on how many loading screens I sat through in The Witcher 3 that were
I have not tried that yet.
You should let me know if that's any better.
I mean, I noticed a huge jump playing on PC on an SSD. Just doing that was a lot faster. Sure. But I have not, because I haven't played on PlayStation since I got on PC, because Novigrad is a completely different experience on PC.
I'm sure,
But I'm happy with the purchase. I am happy with and excited for the things coming forward with it. If you're not a Souls fan though, or like a diehard Spider-Man fan, there's nothing out right now that is like you need to have this console. Yeah. So if you haven't been able to get one, don't feel too bad if you're not super into that stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
That was way too long, and I'm so sorry.
No, it's good.
We're just catching up, man.
Yeah.
We gotta make up for the lost time.
So we will be watching 2 more episodes of Watchmen for next week, episodes 2 and 3, and we'll be back to talk about those. I'm very excited to go through, especially with Justin and Gwen. I'm just excited to hear what you think, and that you're allowing yourself to go on this just little experiment of not knowing anything, just because I'm curious as to what it'll be. But so you've been here with me, Tyler Harris, and
Gwen Hammer,
Tyler McKinley,
Justin Hammer. Banging shit as nobody says goodbye. Just... That's the best sign off we could come up with.
I forgot about that. I was just
goodbye.